Good morning. Welcome to another segment of Exciting Economics. I'm Megan, Macroeconomics.
And I'm Paige, PPC.
In this episode, we'll be discussing GDP.
Megan, what is GDP and why is it important?
GDP stands for Gross Domestic Product. GDP estimates are commonly used to determine a country's economic performance. Nominal GDP is the monetary measure of all value of final goods and services produced in a specific period. Real GDP is a measure of the value of economic output adjusted for price changes, such as inflation or deflation. This adjustment transforms the money value measure, nominal GDP, into an index for quantity and total output. To calculate real GDP, you can use the equation nominal GDP divided by the deflator equals real GDP.
If you wanted to calculate nominal GDP, you would add together the various components of the economy that are a measure of all the goods and services produced. This could be done through three strategies.
The expenditure approach measures GDP by counting all the money spent on new final goods and services produced. The income approach measures GDP by counting the income received by individuals in the economy during a certain period of time. The value-added approach measures GDP by measuring each firm's value added, otherwise known as the value of its output minus the value of the goods and services used to produce it.
When calculating GDP, it is important to remember that the production of intermediate goods or the sale of used goods does not add to GDP.
GDP can be used to contribute to the depiction of a relationship between supply and demand on a graph.
Let's use an example.
Say oil imports fall. As a consequence of this, American consumers are paying more for their oil than in previous months. The x-axis will be GDP, while the y-axis will be price level. Here are the original short-run aggregate supply curve, long-run aggregate supply curve, and aggregate demand curve. This creates point equilibrium 1. This oil situation caused a shift in only the short-run aggregate supply curve. Supply has decreased, so it moves to the left, creating equilibrium 2.
Given this, price level raises and an inflationary gap is created.
Nice, great graphing, Paige. I'm really glad we learned about GDP and its role in the aggregate supply and demand graph.
Thanks, Megan. We'll see you next week on Exciting Economics.